The Netherlands are probably the best team to never win a World Cup and have been in 3 finals without winning one of them. Despite having legends like Van Dijk, Robben, Bergkamp and Cruyff, they've just never got over the line. But could 2026 finally end their curse? Today I'll be looking at their stacked team, Koeman's tactics, and ultimately I'll be deciding whether I think they have what it takes to win the World Cup. I feel like it makes the most sense to start with the Netherlands backline this year because this is their most stacked position by far. With a backline that consists of Dumfries, Van de Ven, Van Dijk and Van Hecke, I think it's pretty clear they'll be parking the van quite a bit this year. Now I don't think I really need to elaborate how good these players are individually because they're all high profile, you know that, but I do want to, look at what they all offer to this Netherlands team and how that can help them win. Now when you're looking at Van Hecke and Van Dijk, they both have one thing in common that excels in Koeman's system. Their composure and ability to play out from the back is unmatched, and honestly it allows them to always pick the right pass into the middle. Van Dijk and Van Hecke are the perfect duo to do stuff like this, and it always makes sure they fluidly turn from defence to attack. On top of this, both of them are just genuinely giants. Van Hecke stands at 6'2", Van Dijk towers at 6'4", which means their aerial duels are pretty much on lock for the Netherlands. Even more especially, Van Dijk knows how to guide those headers right into the back of the net, scoring 12 goals this season, if you include World Cup qualifiers. Honestly, just shove Van Dijk up front at this point because he'd outscore Saka any day. I'm joking, obviously, maybe that was a little bit too far. Now having these two, solid defenders really lets Netherlands play wing backs, which makes them really formidable on the front foot. The pace and the technical abilities that Dumfries and Van de Ven both offer on the front foot means that, Gakpo and Somerville are never going to be isolated on their respective wings. Genuinely, all you have to do is look at the heat maps of these two players to see just how much they help on the front foot. And I think that can really help to overwhelm their opponents this summer, especially when we get later into the tournament. It's also insanely important to credit the pace of Van de Ven because if there's any ball out of possession near him, he's getting there first, undoubtedly. And honestly, if football ever stops working for him, he can just go to the Olympics, I'm not gonna lie, he's chilling. Unfortunately though, I think the attacking style of their two fullbacks has hindered them defensively in a way because when we watched Japan, Kubo and Ito, we both had a lot of fun down the wings, I'll just say that. However, I don't think this is ultimately what made them draw that game. I think Koeman shouldn't have gone 5 at the back. I think he should have trusted their tactics, and if he does, I think we can go far. This defence should be hard to break down for the majority of the tournament and definitely provides help on the attack as well. I think it has what it takes to take on the best of opponents and stop them scoring, but what about the midfield? Moving up the pitch, the Netherlands midfield consists of Gravenberch, De Jong and Reinders, which are all good individually, but can they work as a team? When the Netherlands are on the front foot, all 3 of these players know how to pick up their weight, create chances and be a little bit creative. Gravenberch walked away from Dallas with 2 assists, De Jong helped a lot on the front foot and covered a bit defensively, but in my personal opinion, Reinders really struggled to get into the game against Japan. Obviously, he's had a very shaky end to the season, and I think there was a visible drop in quality when you looked at his midfield companions. Personally, I think Jurrien Timber looked a lot more creative when he eventually came onto the pitch, and I think that's the better option for the Netherlands. I do honestly believe that the trio of Gravenberch, De Jong and Jurrien Timber have what it takes to put in the hard work, bring the intensity, win the ball, make them hard to break down and help on the attack. Not to mention the class that Reinders can offer as, like a 20-minute substitute, and we have to give credit to Justin Kluivert, who's had an amazing Bournemouth campaign. The depth, energy and variety that Koeman has in this midfield honestly makes me think he can tweak to different opponents and, he can get them over the line and beat anyone. All of this depends on how the front 3 do though, because if you can't score goals, quite frankly, you can't win games. I mean, we saw it with Ecuador last night. Valencia dropped a stinker. At the end of the day, it's the forwards who have the biggest impact on, actually securing the 3 points, and I think the Netherlands lack that. I'm also lacking subscribers right now, so make sure to subscribe for loads of World Cup content. And thank you so much if you already have. Now, Memphis Depay has always been the striker you think of for the Netherlands, but he's 32, he's struggling in the Brazilian league, so Koeman's passed the boots to Malin of Roma. Now against Japan, I've gathered that this guy clearly knows where to be if he wants to get on the end of a pass. There were several occasions where Malin had the perfect positioning, made brilliant runs, and he was satisfying to watch, especially in the first half. But unfortunately, he just lacked that end product and didn't have the composure, ball control to actually take the ball down and put it past the Japan keeper. And don't get me wrong, he ended his Roma campaign with 6 goal contributions in 5 games, which is genuinely unreal. But if he does continue like this and folds on a big stage, then the best centre-backs and goalkeepers in the world, quite frankly, aren't going to let him get away with that. Now, looking to his right, we have Somerville, and I did not know he moved like he did against Japan. What I love about him is how unpredictable he is, and his ability to, you know, shake things up, which the other winger definitely can't do. More on that in a moment. Considering Somerville played for a team that got relegated last season, and he still managed to put up half-decent numbers, I think he has what it takes to perform when the rest of his team does. Somerville is most definitely the one to watch for the Netherlands in this tournament, and I can see him maybe getting a big move after it. But in complete contrast to this player is Cody Gakpo, and as a Liverpool fan, I have a lot to say about this guy. I just think he's the most predictable winger on the entire planet, and a wise man once said, if you do the same thing over and over again, you're insane, so I'm calling Gakpo insane. Every time he has that ball, he'll take on his man, he'll cut in, and he'll go near post, and everybody just knows what he's going to do now. That's why it just doesn't work, and I do admire his confidence. I admit he can take on a man, but if he cuts in and takes them on all over again, it just makes zero sense. Gakpo's potential this tournament is genuinely insanely high, and I do want to praise him a bit in that regard, but he does need to offer something new. Their attack is definitely weaker than a lot of other attacks in this, you know, the World Cup, but I think a lot of them can turn up on their day, and if they do, the Netherlands are one to watch. I think the biggest depends-on factor though is definitely if they take their chances, because the creativity in the middle and with the fullbacks is definitely up there. They just need, you know, Malen to put those balls in the back of the net. They are vulnerable to counter-attack systems, as Japan exploited that a few times last night, but Koeman knows that. He's an experienced manager. He'll sort things out against other teams. Anyway, let me know how far you think they'll go in the comments. I'm personally going for the semi-finals.